Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave as we get started for the new week of new opportunities and also I think a holiday as well. Hey, have a happy Memorial Day in your life if you are celebrating such things right now. I want to wish you the best and the happiest no matter what, because, well, it might just be a regular Monday for you anyways, but all good, man, all good. It's all the same time, it's just an arbitrary construct anyways, which also means that days are, and it's all just a rooster illusion in the back of our mind's eye. But we have some actual important things to talk about on good old Bitcoin price action going on right now. I want to follow up on yesterday's short-term analysis, which we did see the short-term downside scenario happen with Bitcoin taking out that 90.50-ish level to the downside, initiating the move down to 8,600, which is where we are right now. So our bullish and BULLAHS hopes doused for the foreseeable future, well, maybe. We'll talk about that. But before we get to that, I should also say I might be on Twitch today. I'm not so sure just yet. Need to figure out a few things first and foremost, but everything is going well here. I think I've finally figured out my new computer and really happy with that. If I'm not on, Elsa will certainly be on. She's at Elsa69 and it's a great name. and enjoy if you want to hang out there. All good indeed. Anyways, go take a look at the Krown Trading application, which can be found at app.krowntrading.net. And as you can see, there's been multiple updates over the past few months really, but especially over this last few days, as we do see the open interest taking a massive leap up to 2,600,000,000, which is really because we just added a ton more exchanges. So now we have about a dozen exchanges now. We've also added more integrations with trading journals. So if you want to look at your account's equity curve and all that good stuff, you can go check that out there. And there are now more charts and whatnot, which will actually be updated in the next updates. Actually, they're going to be reskinned, recolored. So don't get married to the colors just yet. All good, but we're including just about every major exchange now, of which you can see most of them on the left-hand side and over here. I believe that there's a few more on top of that too. And they're going to be updated as time goes on too. So like I said, don't get too married to it just yet. But we are, this is really like a long-term project. So we want to make sure that we are, doing the best job that we can. So, updates, they come every week, but we want to make sure that everything is like solid and good. And that's why progress can sometimes be a little bit frustrating and slow, but it's all for the best at the end of the day. Anyways, I should also say, for anyone who happens to give a fuck, I will be uploading to my new gaming channel later today, as I do every day. Definitely go check it out if you're interested in strategy games in general, and especially if you like Total War series. It can be found at Total Krown. I'll have a link in the comment section below. And of course, like I always say, if that does not sound like you, if that does not tickle your fancy, definitely do not check it out. It's all good. It's no hard feelings. It's all good. But if you are interested in such things, I could use some more friends there. As you'll never hear me say, make sure to like and subscribe and smash the bell, which I don't think I've ever said here once, but on that channel you probably will hear me say such things because I actually do want to build it up a little bit. Anyways, okay, so that's stuff that you probably don't give a fuck about. Let's get into stuff that maybe you do give a fuck about. Let's go talk about Bitcoin price action going on over here. Or sorry, first before that, we do see Bitcoin dominance bouncing up a little bit from yesterday to today. I believe yesterday we were at a 65% low, now 65.5%, and in crypto fear and greed index actually down a couple points as well to a 41. So still within the fearful zone as price action slumps down. So let's go and start off with the lower term timeframes following up from yesterday's price action analysis. Now, yesterday I was looking at this as likely a higher low in the making. Obviously, that was the wrong scenario, or sorry, that was the wrong interpretation. And this is why I always say do not, or at least I would strongly suggest not listening to my opinion on price action. The technical analysis and levels, that's what I can stand by. That's what I trade myself. And yesterday, as I said, I did not have a position. I don't trade on the weekends to begin with. And with regards to that, now I'm just kind of, sitting back and watching after the destruction has happened. So with the breakage of yesterday below our short-term range, which was this guy right here, 90.50-ish region, and at the most 99,000, that did initiate our next move down to this blue box right here, of which we have tapped into it. This is what I mean by following the technical analysis, not the opinions. And with that said, this does offer up a completely different look on price action today as far as the medium and perhaps even higher term timeframes go. Now, not only are we closer to breaking the downside of this long-term region, but also this is looking more and more like a potential lower high on the macro. It's hard to be bullish on what is still a continuation of downtrend for the last 2-3 years. I mean, we have 20,000, 16,000, 11,500, 10,500, then 9,500 essentially on a weekly closing basis. I'm not necessarily, or we should probably take them off for that. But as you can see right here, it's just a downtrend as it is right now. Now, I don't think it's time to necessarily panic just yet, but this is pretty much par for the course on Bitcoin for how it likes to put in major tops, and also by contrast, major bottoms as well. Usually you see Bitcoin start to go sideways and put in some sort of triangular formation over the course of 2 to 3 months when it does start to switch up phases. And right now, by coming back down to that 8,600-ish low, this is starting to look a little bit more like a descending triangle. It is certainly not an ascending triangle any longer, and higher low structure is almost destroyed. It's not destroyed just yet, but it's almost destroyed. Now, here's the thing. This is what makes it a little bit more tricky. So in the very short term, I actually do think that we are going to bounce here, or I think it's very likely to bounce here, just because we have tapped into this blue box territory, and we do see that momentum oscillators are very beat up here. Now, is there any divergences being formed on even a 4-hour total time frame? Actually, no, there's not, which is quite enlightening. And also historical volatility percentile on the 4-hour is still contracting. So yesterday we said that we were expecting another move up to test the trend line of this. We got that. Moving average on this stays downwardly sloped, which suggests that we're going to continue to play out this consolidation for a little bit longer. So I do think that Bitcoin's going to very likely bounce here and set up for a breakage a little bit later this week, maybe in 3-4 days, probably by Friday. I think very high probability for that, which we'll look at probability chart in just a bit. But for right now, I do believe that we've seen that move. We should see this very likely contract a little bit more and wedge itself into this area right here, which is going to become statistically very, very likely to break. Now, what does that look like on price action? That means that we have some space to fill out before the potential big bad break. So to the downside, the big bad break is still the same area that we've been speaking about for the higher term timeframes. Anywhere below 8,600, especially on a daily or 12-hour closure, and Bitcoin now has, well, a downtrend confirmed on 12-hour daily, and I think even 2-day and maybe 3-day here. Yeah, because we would have lower high right here and then lower low. Now, as it is right now, we are bouncing off the 200 simple and 21 exponential average on the 2-day, or if you want to look at the daily, it's probably like the 55. Yeah, you could kind of say it's 55 right now. And the 3-day probably showing the 21. Yes, indeed it is. All of them kind of relative to each other, but it does offer up some damn good indications that is the next big precipice of price action to be basing the next potential big breakdown upon on the higher term timeframes and even macro scale. If Bitcoin does break 8,600 on at the very least a 12-hour closure, I think maybe a 4-hour could do it as well for the very aggressive traders out there, although technically speaking, we don't really have lower lows on the 4-hour until we close below about 85.50-ish region. So, take that with a grain of salt. I still do think that higher time frames rule the world. Then yes, I would be looking for a big bad down, as I've been saying, into the low 7,000s very likely, maybe even upper 6,000s. Likely going to be bounces along the way as well. I don't think it's just going to be a straight line there, but bounces extremely likely at 8,150, 7,500, and then 6,900 to 7,100-ish region right here. As those areas become more and more relevant. So I do think that Bitcoin's kind of in a precarious place right here. At the end of the day, like I said, I do think that we're very likely to bounce on the on this first pass of the blue box territory. But now it's a game of blue box to blue box, as it typically is. And you do see that our topside blue box, which we were using as support from that potential higher low over this past weekend, has obviously been broken, and that's now going to become very likely resistance right around the 9,000 to 9,100-ish region. So as long as we are below there, pressure is on to the downside. And for fuck's sake, this damn kitchen is too loud. Anyways, we can also see that we are kind of resting on this long-term support trend line coming in from our $4,400 lows in March 13th. I don't know why Elsa just decides to do fucking dishes every time I fucking record. It's ridiculous. Hey! She can't even hear. Oh, well, whatever. More important things to worry about in life, I suppose. Also, with regards to that, I do want to say that this long-term trend line, if it does get broken, yes, it does. It doesn't necessarily have a measured move to be made upon it. For the people out there looking at this as still a rising channel, I don't believe that's the right way to be interpreting this price action. But it would very likely, from a Fibonacci perspective, suggest at the very least a move back down to the 382 right here. You can see that we're kind of basing off the 0.5, and if that does break, like I said, bounce along the way. But from both Fibonacci perspective and also a volume profile perspective, you can see that there's really not much holding Bitcoin up from 6,900 to 7,000 bucks region if we do lose this area right now, which is actually the penis Christian or point of control for those for those using the volume profile out there. On top of that, we do see Yeah, we do see some activity in the low $8,000 region, so I do think that Bitcoin would very likely bounce, for a decent medium time frame bounce around there, if and when Bitcoin does get there. But is that going to be good enough to hold up this whole baby the whole way through? It's possible, but in order to reverse trend, if Bitcoin were to come down there, first and foremost, it would need to do something different to the upside. And at this point, different to the upside is no longer relevant to the short and medium term timeframes. It only matters with the higher and even macro term timeframes, of which those areas are still the same. And as you can see right here, 9,800 is still that last high structure. So as long as Bitcoin is closing dailies below there, it's very difficult to get bullish for a macro or even long-term move. It's kind of caught in a range now, which I do believe we're probably going to play out for another week or something, between this mid $8,000 region and probably the lower 9,000s, maybe all the way up to 9,500. But as long as we are below 9,800, it's just that, a lower high, unfortunately. So I do think that we're going to get caught in one of those I think it's very possible. I think it's very likely that Bitcoin gets caught in one of these muddy territories again, where it does play out some pretty nasty downside. This is very reminiscent of the way that Bitcoin plays out a lot of its major tops. You do see this area right here in middle of 2019, where Bitcoin did, spike up in a very aggressive way. Everyone gets very, very excited, myself included. And then what does it do? It comes back down to this base right around mid 9,000s, and then plays out the lower high structure, and then eventually breaks down. Same thing right here to a lesser extent. Same thing right here to a lesser extent, and potentially same thing in the making right here, also to a lesser extent, because it's not as long, thus as it is right now. On top of that, we do see, this area right here in late 2018 in this ascending triangle fashion, and then even at the top of the 20,000 high in 2017 as well. So this is kind of par for the course in the way that Bitcoin likes to put in its major highs. Even though I do think that Bitcoin is probably going to bounce here in the lower term timeframes, I'm just a little bit more skeptical about the long term now, especially as long as Bitcoin is below 9,800. If Bitcoin was going to pull through over this past weekend and set in that higher low and solidify it, I believe it would have done that. However, that's just not what is going on in price action right now. Momentum also just on the lower term time frame, we're actually even still geared towards the downside. 4-hour Stochs still coming down here. 3-hour Stochs going to be finding a little bit of their footing, but technically still down. 2-hour just had a snake around and down, and hourly is looking like it's getting caught in the bearish control zone and perhaps even under pressure once again. This does not necessarily look like the picture of health and fitness right here. And if we do put on the reverse Stoch indicator cross, we can see that momentum will remain to the downside as long as Bitcoin is on a 4-hour closing basis below 90.30. On a 3-hour closing basis below 87.75, on a 2-hour closing basis below 8,900, and on an hourly closing basis as long as it's below 87.50. So you very likely will already have resolution on this by the time that I post this video, but assuming that Bitcoin 4-hour is still closing below 9,000 in these next 2 consecutive dildos, I do think that we're probably going to get another swipe of the lows, maybe even tap 8,600 evenly, and then probably play out a bounce from there, and then we'll come back over the rest of the week and see how this kind of formulates things. I do want to check out the medium-term timeframes as well. Looking at the 12-hour, we do see 12-hour Stochs still angled to the downside. We were postulating this yesterday as potentially an area where it could cross back up to the upside. Hey, baby, could you not do that? Could you not do that right now? It'd be very helpful. She's giving me the eye, but it's okay. It's all for good. We need. I know. It's just very difficult to hear, I think. Anyways, looking at this right here. We were postulating this yesterday. This was also a damn good indication that we were going to go lower, because once that 12-hour close, it did not bounce off this. It closed right below, and then what happens after that? Dooms drop of another like $400-500, I suppose. So not very good right there. Now we'll have this competing trend line on the top side as well at some point in time, but we don't have to deal with that just yet. And of course, momentum on the 12-hour will remain to the downside as long as we are below where? 9,000. So 9,000 is still relevant for the short term. If Bitcoin does pop back up above 9,000, then I would be looking for a range to be established between 9,000 and about 9,500. And I do think that Bitcoin would still, rally up a little bit there. But remember, that's, like I said, that's still just a lower high, unfortunately. I know a lot of people want to be bullish on Bitcoin, myself included. I think life is just easier when Bitcoin is listen, there's a great saying that says don't confuse brains with the bull market, and it's fucking true, man. And this is coming from someone who trades for a living. I would just rather Bitcoin be bullish, because you don't need to be a professional trader in order to make money in a bull market. It's It's that fucking simple, man. That's when actually buy and hold is not the worst strategy. Anyways, looking at this right here, 12-hour is still contracting on historical volatility percentile. I also do think still that it is setting up for a big bad breakout relatively soon, but we are likely wedging ourselves into this very intense territory right here, looking for a resolution around the end of this week. I do think is relatively likely. Daily is also interesting, as well as I'm going to sound like the biggest fucking moron now. Hey, feel free to call me a big fucking moron in the comments, because what do I always say? Anytime I disagree with the Jewel, I'm wrong. I've never disagreed with a Jewel and been right, and the Jewel's been wrong ever. And I seem to not learn my lesson. We had a damn good sell signal on the daily Jewel for spot price action right here. I feel so silly to have discounted that. Yes, CMEs did not necessarily have the same one, but CMEs cracking below the white oscillator right here is probably going to be good enough for it to bring it down. By the way, for all the people messaging me, but Krown, Monday's a holiday, there's no CMEs trading. Hey man, futures trade differently, for fuck's sake. Sorry, I don't mean to single out anyone in particular, but for whatever reason I got a shit ton of messages about that. Futures trade differently. They do typically trade on holidays, because it is a world market, and it's not the same thing as like CMEs being closed for their floor trading. Floor trading and futures trading completely different hours, especially. And as you can see here on CMEs, yes, we do have the white 200 simple kind of protecting against that 85.50-ish low right there. And we do have that golden cross going on as well. And CMEs could still pull through and put in a higher low here if Bitcoin does close back above 9,000 by end of day. But it's... when you're closer to breaking to the downside, it's easier to break to the downside than the upside at the end of the day. And this in this area right here, very, 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 very obviously the pivot for the higher term timeframes. And like I said, if we do break this area, I think that there would be bounce along the way, but I'd look for a quick move down to 8,100, then probably a nice bounce there, then probably down to 75, and then down to 71 over time. Then again, you never know timing of these things either. So what else do we want to look at here? Okay, we looked at that. Do we see anything on 12-hour RSI? Not really. I'm sure some people are going to say that this is hidden bullish divergence. I wouldn't say that just yet. Maybe on a daily though. It still could line up for some hidden bullish divergence on a daily, but that's no longer going to be good enough to get things back up to 9,800, maybe 9,500, yes. And that will only be confirmed if Bitcoin regains the 21 on the daily. And where's the 21? That $9,000 region. So $9,000 region is very key for the short and medium term timeframes. As long as Bitcoin's below, pressure is on. I do, however, think that Bitcoin's going to test back up there. If it retakes that region, I'd probably be looking for a move to about 9,500, but still long term, that's a lower high structure. I cannot get bullish on Bitcoin, as I've been saying, for the higher term timeframe breakout until there is a daily close above the prior high at 9,800, which we just set in. So this is starting to look a lot more like a macro potential lower high. I mean, it technically is right now, because I believe that we have taken out the last low. Let me just look at all the exchanges here. 8630, yes, indeed. What about Finex? Yes, it has as well. And what about Mexico? Yes, it has as well. So all major exchanges have put in what appears to be a potential lower high on the weekly. Momentum oscillators are still headed north. And I'd say from a momentum oscillator perspective on the weekly, it actually does look good. Weekly's still good there, and weekly RSI is okay. But the weekly RSI could also be formulating a head and shoulders there as well, which I don't like. I do want to check in on CME RSI. Remember CME had this formation right here, right? This literally a year-long falling wedge. This is still within the cards, but I need to see this week close the RSI oscillator above the the top side support of this, and it needs to be test that support and actually bounce off. I don't want to see it like just rest on there, but actually bounce off, and that's pretty much at a 53 read right now. So let's go see what price action would have to close at in order to produce that. Let's see, where's my hey, where are you? Okay, yeah, there we go. Let's do, no, I need show RSI level for, okay. No, I need it backwards. Motherfucker. I think I don't know how to do this right now. I want to set it. No, it's this one right here. Jesus Christ, man. Sorry, guys. I did not get the best night of sleep last night. Needs to close above about 8,900 in order to maintain above this pivot right here on the weekly RSI, which would be a big deal to me, but it's a long way to go. And seeing as we just kind of started it, well, a lot can go wrong, I suppose, between there. Of course, the bulls still do have the weekly moving averages here. They do have the weekly 21 exponential moving average, which should cross the upside of the 55. And the 10 symbol is going to cross all these guys, assuming that Bitcoin doesn't break below 8,100 soon, within this next week or two. You will actually see that, which is long-term good. And also long-term, it is worth mentioning this as well, in the sense that the yellow 21 exponential moving average on the weekly has been a damn good indication of Bitcoin's long-term health. Is Bitcoin price action above it? Generally good. If Bitcoin's price action is above it, plus it has a positive slope, very good. I mean, that's kept you in all of the long-term rallies for years at a time, even during these nasty crashes or pullbacks, as cryptocurrency people say, and into the downside, same thing as well. It lets you know when things are really shifting in that favor back here on this bull trap, and of course the bull trap of 2018, and then more recently in 2019 as well. Well, you can see that Bitcoin is above the 21, obviously, and it does have a positive slope for now. So still, it is okay. And where does that level come in around? 8,100. So 8,100 is also a nice gatekeeper for if you want to make it for the macro. That's fine. I do think that breaking 8,600 on a 12-hour or daily closure is pretty damn bad. But technically speaking, if you wanted a little bit more hopium, I'd say 8,100 is a nice long-term area to watch as well. But I wouldn't have very high hopes for it if that were to happen. At least I'd want to see it in real time. And then of course, if we go over here to the monthly. If you go over here to the monthly, which we will be closing the monthly relatively soon, as I did say this past weekend, if Bitcoin closes this monthly above, let's call it 93.50, this last prior high right here, massively bullish. And yes, momentum oscillators will very likely follow through with that. Monthly Stokes will inevitably cross the upside. Monthly Joule will very likely bounce off this region, and monthly RSI will maintain above the exponential as well. However, right now, as you can see, it's very much in limbo, and any sort of a closure kind of where we are right now or lower is gonna look good for, at the very least, a test of the downside, probably, like I said, back down to 7,000, very likely. However, momentum oscillators will naturally remain to the upside as long as the monthly closes above 77.50. We will see monthly Stokes cross the upside, so that is good. And for the monthly RSI EMA, I'd be looking at that at 87.50. So it will remain to the upside as long as Bitcoin price action is above 87.50. Of course, though, I would feel a lot more comfortable with being potentially long-term bullish on Bitcoin if we see the monthly close above 93.50. That is the obvious area. But for right now, pressure is on, and with how much longer do we have to go? With less than a week to go in the month. That's actually a long. That's actually a lot of time. But for right now, fair enough. Okay. Also, I want to see what the accumulation distribution indicator is showing right now too. No, sir. There you are. Still is a negative slope actually. So I need to see this flatten out and have a neutral or positive slope on the next tick. Otherwise, you will see me get quite bearish again, and I will warn you in advance. Also, I forgot to talk about this at the beginning of the video, but I have closed all my Discord DMs and everything. I apologize if that's been an inconvenience for anyone. I do understand that it can kind of feel like putting a barrier between yourself and someone else. That's not my intention. It's just I just found myself not having enough time to address the community and be a part of like the general community, and also the members community as well in the Discord. So I wanted to kind of step back from that and be more part of the crowd rather than just like answering fucking DMs all day, which was also starting to kind of like eat into my mental health as well. So again, I apologize about it, but it is my fault at the end of the day. I do take responsibility for it. I just found that this is the best way to kind of handle it for now, and so far so good. I feel like being a part of the community is addressing more people and helping more people, or at least it just feels better. It just feels better. So I'll leave it at that. Okay. All right. Do we want to go back to CMEs for a second here and see what they're looking like? Let's take this off for now. Looks very sad with just these guys on right now, but I think if we put everything else on it, yeah, kind of picks itself up a little bit. Okay, so as far as traditional markets go, we can look at futures right now. NAS futures trading, of course, as well. Still bullish on this, as I've been saying. I'd say that this would be another good indication for Bitcoin as well. But it being a holiday, I'm very skeptical of futures showing any sort of price action on a holiday. Usually markets just kind of float to the upside for for major holidays. Everyone wants to feel good about it, and for good reason, I suppose. No reason not to. But overall, I'm still looking for probably new highs on this long term. And short term, I think that is going to retest the 9650 high. If the monthly closes anywhere above 9,000, I'm bullish for new all-time highs in the next month or two. This looks very good. This was a fake out. I mean, it's not a fake out to the downside. It just came down to the 21. I mean, it looks good. It looks good. E-mini futures, not as strong, but if it does close above the 10 simple or anywhere above 300 or 3,000, I would be looking for next month to rally up with NAS futures and probably tap into the 320, maybe even new all-time high range as well. I'm not bearish on this. This is a very good weekly setup right here. I think that it will come back down to 2,900, but I would be looking for a bounce there and continuation up to the 310, 313 region over these next couple of weeks. And I hold on to that view as long as it's making higher lows here, which the last higher low we just put in at 2,900 even. So I like that right there. And I do think that continuation is the name of the game. That would also be in the bullish case for Bitcoin, as well as we see these guys moving together for the past 10 years, which cryptocurrency people typically don't want to admit until it actually benefits them. So there you go. Now, how's that for you, Ivan on Tech and Chris from MM, guys who I actually like. I really like them as people, but I just don't understand the perpetuation of these myths. What is going? You don't need to do that, man. You can be grounded in reality, and I think people would appreciate that more. I mean, there's going to be some people out there who just want to be like, they just want their hands hodled and everything as well. But that's probably not the people that you want to be around to begin with. Anyways, different topic for a different time, perhaps. I do want to be on record that I actually do like those guys a lot as people, but it's just very interesting to hear them deny the obvious. Or at least what would appear to the obvious to me. I'm just not certain what the hell they're seeing. So fair enough. Anyways, let's go over and check out probabilities now. With the ranges in mind, again, 8,600 to the downside on a 12-hour or daily closure basis. I would look for a very quick move to 8,100. Probably a nice bounce there. Maybe it does hold up, maybe not. There are a lot of supports coming in around that region, but ultimately, I do think that Bitcoin would very likely come down to the low 7,000s. By the same token, above 9,000, I would look for extension at the very least to 93. Personally speaking, I do think 95 would be the next major area, but that is still a lower high on the higher term timeframes. And again, the higher term timeframe region for calling a big bad breakout to 11,000 and a half and probably beyond, still the same. 9,800. 9,800 is the gatekeeper for that. So let's go check them out right here. See what they're looking like. And I'll be very generous to the bulls here and do 90.50 to the upside for the very short term. To the downside, we'll do 86. Okay, downside, or actually, let me make sure that this is current. Yeah. Downside probability is 33.5% versus 12.5% for the upside just for the short term. So that's downside for the medium and higher term timeframes, more than almost double of what the upside is in the short term. And that's just for the 12-hour. For the daily, it's going to be a lot more. Downside probability is 39.5%, almost 39.5% for the 8,600-ish level. For the upside, it is almost 21%. Almost some Forever 21 bullshit going on over there. Let's go see what the rings are looking like as well. Are they flattening out at all on the future take? No, they're not. No, they're not. All right, so fair enough. Even like the short-term upside is looking a little bit unlikely right here, according to that. However, if I did have to put my my reputation on it, which I think is a terrible idea, I do think that Bitcoin's going to grind out this area a little bit more and then probably rally back up to test low 9,000s, and then we'll decide from there. But it is a little bit of a sombering thought that right now Bitcoin appearing to put in that formation of doom and destruction. Anyways, again, 8,600 on a 12-hour daily closure to the downside, or a 4-hour below, let's call it 8,500 just to be conservative as possible. Then yes, I would look for a move down to 8,100-ish region, probably bounce there, and then continuation down to low 7,000s. By the same token, I do think that it's probably going to find its footing here a little bit. At least try up towards 9,000 again. If 9,000 is retaken, I would be looking for at the very least an extension to 93. And personally speaking, I do think that it would pop up to 95, and that I want to see it in real time, and we'll see if continuation is in the cards or not. With 9,800 as the big bad level to the upside. That's going to do it for right now. I want to take one more second to wish you the best of the best and the happiest. Take care, and until next time.